Good evening, this is Brown at Brown, and tonight we're going to be talking about Blind Fury on DVD. So this is actually a double feature DVD with the movies Blind Fury on one side and Omega Doom on the other. Both movies star the late great Rutger Hauer. And I was originally hoping to find Blind Fury on Blu-ray because I saw it a long time ago and I was younger, and it was on TV, so there were a lot of commercials, but I remember I really enjoyed the movie. And so when I heard that it was going to be on Blu-ray, I was excited because usually when they re-release say like cult movies out on Blu-ray, there tend to be a decent amount of special features on them. And I found the Blu-ray, but unfortunately it was a bare bones Blu-ray, and so far that's the only edition that they're putting out. And I thought that unfortunately it was bad enough that it was a bare bones Blu-ray, but also it was going to be pretty expensive. It was going to be something like $20, and so I was just like, not worth it. So I looked around, and thankfully I was able to find it on DVD, and it was a double feature, and it was like $3 or $4, and so it was like definitely a much better deal. So got it, and I went over and watched it with my mom and my brother, and they'd never seen the movie before, and this was I think my second time having seen the movie all together, and we all three of us really enjoyed it. It was really fun, and I was glad to find that the movie still held up after all this time. And it was also kind of a reminder of how good of an actor Rutger Hauer was. And it's too bad we lost him. I mean, I know everyone passes away, but Rutger Hauer was one of those guys who kind of iconic. He was in Blade Runner, Nighthawks, Flesh and Blood, Lady Hawk, Soldier of Orange. Really good actor. And he was also in Batman Begins and Sin City in supporting roles, but some people might remember him from those movies. And I really I thought he was a good actor, and he was good at playing both good guys and bad guys, and here he's a good guy, thankfully. Anyway, though, Blind Fury was actually directed by a guy named Philip Noyce, who also directed the movies Dead Calm, the Jack Ryan movies with Harrison Ford, Patriot Games, and Clear and Present Danger. He also did The Bone Collector and The Quiet American. So the guy's got a fairly respectable career, and Blind Fury, it's definitely not a bad thing on his resume. And it was actually based off of the screenplay for a Japanese movie that came out in 1967 called Zadoiki Challenged. I hope I'm saying the name right. But the gentleman who wrote the screenplay for that movie was Ryozo Kasanara. I hope I'm saying his name right. Apologies if I'm not. But so that movie was actually the basis for this one. And a guy named Charles Robert Carner actually wrote the screenplay that ultimately ended up being an Americanized version of the Japanese movie. And it's actually it's an interesting take on things, because I mean it's definitely more of a Western movie for sure, but you can definitely see that there are some Japanese influences, even if you didn't know that it was based off of like a Japanese movie originally, so you definitely can pick up on that. Anyway, the story of Blind Fury, it centers on a guy named Nick Parker, played by Rutger Hauer, who was a Vietnam veteran who lost his sight in the war, but he was actually taken in by some Vietnamese villagers, and they actually cared for him and helped him to recover, and one of the people in the village actually helped him to cope with being blind, and also taught him how to fight blind, namely by you with a sword. And so he's now kind of like a blind swordsman slash almost like a samurai. But through learning how to defend himself while blind, he's he was able to make it out of Vietnam. And as far as the public is concerned, he's dead. Like, his name is literally on the wall in the Vietnam Memorial. And so anyway, the way the movie opens up, he's sort of wandering the countryside, and he ends up he's going to look for an old war buddy of his, a guy named Frank, played by Terry O'Quinn. And the reason he's going to try and find Frank is because it's sort of like on one hand, he wants to catch up with an old buddy, but at the same time, Frank was the guy who indirectly led to Nick losing his sight during the war. There was basically Frank was supposed to cover Nick, and unfortunately he chickened out and ran, and as a result Nick gets caught in an explosion. That's how he lost his sight. But anyway, Nick he's wanting to reach out to Frank and catch up with him, but also try and sort of say, hey, I forgive you for what happened. You panicked. I don't blame you, but I just wanted you to know that I forgive you. And he finds Frank's house, and he finds his now ex-wife, played by Meg Foster, and he also meets Frank's son, Billy, played by Brendan Call, and he's talking to them, and trying to find out what's been going on with Frank. But unfortunately, Frank has gotten involved with some bad people. He and his wife had divorced, and he went to stay in Vegas, and he got involved with some people who were in fact drug dealers, and he's they're wanting him to basically cook for them, sort of like Walter White before Walter White almost. But he's refusing to initially, or at least he's being very stubborn about it. So they send some goons to basically put the hurt on his ex-wife and his son, just to say, okay, we got some leverage on you now, and you better do what we say. So anyway, these goons, they come to the ex-wife's house right when Nick is there, and unfortunately, the ex-wife is murdered, by these creeps. And so Nick, he's able to fight the guys off, but he's too late for the ex-wife, and she makes him promise to take care of Billy, her son. And so this is a dying wish, and he's like, okay, I'll do it. And so you got a blind swordsman trying to look out for a little kid, while trying to make it to Vegas in order to not only make peace with his old buddy, but also to try and help his old buddy too. And so the bad guys, though, they the ones that survived the encounter with Nick, they end up going back to their boss and saying, hey, there's this crazy blind swordsman that's looking for Frank, and we got to do something about him. And so they send all these bad guys after Nick. And so great shades of, Don't Breathe. You got this blind Vietnam veteran going up against, some other, bad guys, and taking them out one by one. So anyway, though, it's said. I mean, that's kind of the gist of the movie. It's a fun movie, and it's very entertaining. There's a lot of variety to the characters and what's going on, as well as the flow of the movie. But it knows when to be funny, and it also knows when to pause for some pathos and substance too. So it's comedy, drama, and action all kind of thrown together. But this was it was a fun time, really. And Rutger Hauer, he does a really good job as Nick Parker. And apparently, he went through like two types of training. One, Blount, he actually trained with someone who was blind, to get the movements and mannerisms down. And also he had to train for how to use a sword, because he had to look like he knew what he was doing whenever he was fighting bad guys with it. And at the climax of the movie, I'll just say that he ends up going up against a fellow swordsman. This time it's like a Japanese assassin and like a literal ninja, and so he had to go through a lot of training with that. Rutger Hauer did, and so that was pretty impressive, because you watch the movie, and I'm sure there was a stunt double here and there, but as far as we could tell, it looked like Rutger Hauer, just about every step of the way, when it came to like the fight scenes and the choreography and what have you. So the training paid off. And also, Rutger Hauer, he did a really good job of playing Nick as someone who, you could tell that he had an air of tragedy about him, in a sense that he felt betrayed by his old buddy, because his old buddy left him high and dry in Vietnam. But at the same time, he's had a very rare opportunity to learn how to readjust his life, and also how to defend himself, so he's not weak and blind, he's strong and blind. So and someone, I remember a couple of people have actually jokingly said that this is basically Stick the movie, Stick being Daredevil's blind mentor, and it's actually a pretty good description, because Nick, as played by Rutger Hauer, he does have that air of tragedy about him, but he also he has a very bright sense of humor. And if I try to explain why it's funny, it's kind of like it would kind of ruin the fact. Just you watch the movie and you can see like there's a lot of humor in reference to Nick being blind, but it's funny how there's some of the natural humor, but then there's also the type of humor where Nick just kind of pretends he's a just a poor blind guy, and he accidentally screws up some of the bad guy's plans, when in fact he's doing it all on purpose. Like, he knows exactly what's going on, but at the same time he kind of uses his status as a blind person to his advantage when it comes to outwitting bad guys. And then of course when it's time, he kind of gets the drop on them, and they realize, oh crap, we totally jerked around the wrong guy. So Rutger Hauer, he does a really good job in the part. And and the way he interacts with, say, his old buddy Frank, there's like a really good sense of him trying to close some old wounds with his old friend. And also whenever he's with the kid Billy. He's kind of like a surrogate father to him, in a sense that, like, he's trying to protect the kid, but he's also, maybe trying to, give him a few pointers in life. And, he's having to tell, this kid, hey, your mom's dead. And, but at the same time, it's like, hey, I mean, she's dead, but you're not. You still have a chance at life. And, he's trying to, help the kid to, grow from, the experience of tragedy. But he's also trying to help the kid be ready, to meet his dad, and so I really like that kind of, relationship, that he had with the kid. There's a lot of familiar faces in this movie. I mean, of course, you had, the great Terry O'Quinn playing Nick's buddy Frank, and, he's the kind of guy who, he's, unfortunately, he's, you get the idea that he's not a bad guy, but it's just that, when he, left Nick high and dry in Vietnam, it wasn't necessarily out of anything, out of any sort of malicious intent, but it was out of panic, and you could tell that, with that moment, it's haunted him, all for most of, his life since then. And also, maybe he's trying to, avoid responsibility, in more ways than one. Like, you don't really know why he got a divorce, and why he left his son, but at the same time, maybe it's just that, the last time he was trusted with some serious responsibility, his friend got hurt and, as far as he knew, killed. And so maybe, him having, like, a family, it was something that he couldn't handle. I mean, at least that's the interpretation I got. But nonetheless, though, you realize that, he does, love his son. And naturally, I mean, when his son's life is on the line, I mean, he's trying to do whatever he can to, make sure that the bad guys don't kill his son. I mean, he's, trying to play ball with them. But when Nick comes back into the picture, it's like he gets a shot at redemption and, trying to help Nick, take on the bad guys, and also to save his son. So I like that little arc they had, and, plus, I mean, Terry O'Quinn, he's, much like Rutger Hauer, he was good at, playing, a wide range of characters. He can be, a good guy like in Rocketeer. He can be a bad guy like in The Stepfather, and in here, he's, I mean, ultimately he ends up falling on the side of good, but at the same time, he's also, done some bad things, or he's made some deals with shady people, and otherwise, he wouldn't have been involved in the drug trade, obviously. But you do see him, make an effort to turn things around, though. So, I mean, Terry O'Quinn, does a really good job in the part, gives Frank a good arc, and, he plays well with Rutger Hauer. Let's see. The guy who runs the the drug ring, or at least the crime ring, the actor's name was Noble Willingham, and he's been in a bunch of movies. Like he was in City Slickers. He was also on the show Walker, Texas Ranger. But yeah, he was a good actor, and I kind of remember him from the Eddie Murphy movie, The Distinguished Gentleman. He was like a sort of a corrupt politician, But anyway, though, no, he's a good actor, and he tends to play corrupt either politicians or just crime bosses in general. He's able to play stuff like that in his sleep, But yeah, he's a pretty good bad guy, at least as far as leaders go. But he also has a bunch of interesting characters, working for him. You got Nick Cassavetes and Rick Overton, playing these sort of dim-witted redneck brothers who they're not necessarily good at, you get the idea that they're not necessarily good at their jobs, or maybe within this universe they are, but this is like the instance where they're too overconfident and, ultimately made idiots out of, by a blind guy, but at the same time though, Nick Cassavetes and Rick Overton, they play, basically they're playing these two, bad guys who are brothers, and so there's like a lot of back and forth, crazy banter, and they're basically they're fun to watch. So it's like you're laughing at them, and so a lot of the comedy, it's successful in regards to these sort of dim-witted characters, but it's meant to be funny, and it actually succeeds at being funny, and of course, Nick Cassavetes, I mean, he's, pretty good at playing a bad guy. Like, he was in that 80s Charlie Sheen movie, The Wraith, and he was the main bad guy in that one. He was actually pretty good. So yeah, it was interesting seeing him in more of a comedic villain role. But I guess the most intimidating bad guy was played by former boxer Randall Tex Cobb, who actually, I remember him being in this Vietnam movie, with Gene Hackman, called Uncommon Valor. Really good movie, from the 80s, and it came out around the same time as I want to say it's like First Blood. Missing in Action, not as good as First Blood, but better than Missing in Action though. So anyway though, yeah, I always remembered Randall, Tex Cobb from that movie. So, but seeing him playing a bad guy though, in a very intimidating one, his character's name was let's see, Slag. I mean, it's a cliche name, but I mean it really fits the character. I mean, he basically he's very bloodthirsty, gets off on, causing pain, and very intimidating character. And there are, multiple times when he goes up against Nick, and you're thinking Nick's finally taken him out, but no, the guy keeps coming back for more. He's the freaking Terminator, regardless of how many times you slash the guy. So, also, I like that the writer, I guess the people, I don't know if it was a screenwriter's idea or just, group collaboration in general, but, he has the wherewithal to, have sort of like body armor, like a bulletproof vest on underneath his clothes. And so, you get this idea that the guy is, I mean, he thrives on conflict, and he thrives on, causing pain, but at the same time, he's not exactly an idiot. I mean, he's bloodthirsty, but in terms of self-preservation, though, he also knows how to take precautions. And so you got this guy who, he's very ruthless, very determined, brute of a guy, and seeing him going up against, Rutger Hauer, and he's one of the few guys who keeps coming back for more, but he's not dismissed. But basically, whereas, when the Pike brothers, the ones played by Nick Cassavetes and Rick Overton, I mean, they're sort of, you can almost dismiss them as jokes, but in a good way. Slag's character, as played by, Tex Cobb, he's not such a joke. And so I appreciated that, the movie, knew, where to actually give some challenge, or at least some menace to the bad guys, and, when to just, have some fun with them. But also, as far as, speaking of bad guys, though, and, them being threats to the main character, in the climax of the movie, the actor, Sho Kozuki, I hope I'm saying his name right. Once again, apologies if I'm not. But he was in some, a lot of Japanese ninja movies in the 80s. And so he actually plays an assassin that the bad guys bring in specifically to deal with Nick. So you got, one swordsman against another, and this guy's actually like a ninja, and so it was really cool seeing him. Even if it's just a brief appearance, it's a very memorable one. And the guys, in this particular movie, he is very skilled in fight choreography, and when he's going up against Nick, I mean, it's a very well done fight, and even somewhat suspenseful too, because I mean, it's like these two guys are both equally skilled with the sword, and it makes for a very good either final fight or next to final fight. But that was a very welcome surprise, so I mean, because of course, I mean, it's fun watching Rutger Hauer go to town on these other bad guys that this gang has, but with only a few exceptions. I mean, they're not really that much of a threat to him. So to see him go up against a guy who is just as good as him, it was a really nice change of pace, and it definitely made things a lot more interesting. I mean, even more interesting than they already were in this moment. But yeah. So I mean, you got some really colorful actors playing these characters, and I neglected to mention that Lisa Blount was in the movie as well, and she plays Frank's current girlfriend. Her name was Annie Winchester, but yeah, she was also in An Officer and a Gentleman and John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness, and a good actress, and I liked her part in this movie because she's you get the idea that she met Frank in Vegas, and actually, yeah, that was the backstory. They did meet in Vegas, but she's also affiliated with the gang. But she really does, love Frank, and she's not wanting him to get killed by these gang members, but at the same time, she also, in her mind, she can't just up and leave because they'll kill her too. But when she gets an opportunity to get away from these guys, namely in helping out Nick, and Billy, the son, you actually see her kind of take charge as much as she can in the situation, and basically they make for sort of like a almost pseudo family, and the three of them, and eventually the four of them when they get and link up with Frank. But yeah, Lisa Blount, she was really good in the part, and there were a couple of times where she was able to sort of trick some of the bad guys, and also causing a distraction, and thus giving Nick an advantage on them. And it's also really funny when you got Billy, who he's a kid, but he ends up being one of the better drivers, ironically, because Nick's blind, and then Annie, she accidentally has her glasses broken, and so you got two blind people and a kid driving a car, and she's freaking out about it, and Nick and Billy are just kind of like, hey, this isn't the worst thing that's happened to us. So but yeah, she had really good chemistry with Rutger Hauer and the kid who played Billy, Brendan Call, and she also of course had good chemistry with Terry O'Quinn to really sell the, I guess you could say, romantic angle. But excuse me. Anyway, though, yeah, you had a very good cast of characters. You had good actors playing them, and also I like I said earlier, the movie knew when to be funny, and it knew when to be serious, and so there are moments where the combat is played strictly for comedy, because Nick will be playing up his blind man persona, and pretend to, accidentally trip, some of the bad guys up, or just, anyone who's trying to bully him. But then, of course, he'll wipe the floor with them. And it's mostly played for laughs. But, then there'll be parts in the movie, like especially in the third act, in which, he's able to be pretty scary. There's a moment where the bad guys initially have the drop on him, but then the lights go out, and they're kind of spooked, and because they can't find him now, even though they just had him in their sights. And one of them says something to the effect of, I can't see anything. It's too dark. And then it turns out Nick is right behind the guy, with the sword poised at his throat. And he says something to the effect of, "This is where I live." And that's when you remember that Rutger Hauer, even though he's playing a good guy in this movie, it's a reminder that he can be downright chilling when he wants to be. And it's just like, you just know, the people who made the movie Don't Breathe, with Stephen Lang, as the blind dude in that movie, that they had to have, gotten some inspiration from, Rutger Hauer in this movie, especially in that scene. Because, it's like I said, it's funny, for a good amount of the time, but then in this third act, it's like, this guy is lethal and scary. So yeah, I definitely applaud them on that score for sure. And also, I really liked Nick's arc, just as a character, because, you get the idea that in his mind, he's already forgiven Frank, but he, on a very, spiritual or psychological level, he needs to, talk with Frank in person and tell him that, he forgives him. And on one hand, he does still have, some resentment towards him, but it's not to a point where he outright hates the guy, but of course, when he's put in the unexpected role of surrogate father, and protector, for, Frank's son Billy, that changes everything though. And, you just see, you see how, altruistic of a character Nick is. He's willing to do, whatever it takes to protect Billy, even if it means, telling him some harsh, life truths. And, those are some very good scenes whenever he's trying to, tell, Billy that, life, it's not easy. Sometimes it's a straight up nightmare. But at the same time, he's trying to, tell him that even though life can be a nightmare sometimes, you can survive it. He's like, hey, look at me. I'm blind, but I'm still alive. I'm still kicking. And so I liked that, particular, dynamic they had with the kid. And of course, by the time he gets to Frank, that's when you get some really good acting, between Rutger Hauer and Terry O'Quinn. So very good character arcs, for both Nick and Frank. And I really liked seeing that. I was already having fun with this movie, but when it came to the drama though, they actually did a pretty good job with it. I will say that the only downsides I could think of, they're not enough to say ruin the movie by any means, but there are a couple of times where I felt like that, they might have, went too much into, the realm of comedy. There are a couple of scenes that I think, overall, they're still good scenes, but at the same time though, it feels like there might be a scene or two that might have been more, they might have benefited more from a more suspenseful angle as opposed to a comedic angle. Like there's a scene where there's a chase through a cornfield, and it's mostly played for laughs. and yeah, it's funny, but at the same time, considering, the setting, I mean, it's a cornfield. I mean, you've seen the movie Signs, cornfields are scary. But that could have been another, spooky scene, at least in my opinion, but instead they went for the comedy there. And yeah, like I said, the comedy, it works, but I mean, every now and then, though, there's a moment where it's like, we know this movie's funny, but if it would have had just a little more edge to it if they'd gone for, I guess, more straight up. I guess if the action had been shot from a more serious or gritty angle or perspective, at least. But not to say like I wanted things to be doom and gloom or anything like that, but just there seemed to be an over reliance on comedy to an extent. But at the same time, though, the comedy, for the most part, it won me over. So I think that like I say, it's not enough to ruin the movie by any means. Like, it's still a good movie. It's just that I think that they made the right choice in ultimately, having, the movie become a lot more, dark and serious in the third act. But I just wish that they would have downplayed some of the comedy earlier on, but I don't know, that's just me. But overall, though, the comedy's actually, pretty good. I mean, I will say that, I mean, I liked it when, Rutger Hauer, when he's walking along, and this is in Florida, I think, but he comes across an alligator, and I don't remember if he knows it's an alligator, but he's got his stick, and he just sort of taps it with a stick gently, and he's like, nice doggy, and he just keeps on walking, and the alligator's just like, so I mean, the comedy overall, it is good. It's very, unique, and it makes the movie stand out that much more. I just wish that, when it came to some of the action scenes, that they hadn't gone full on comedy as much as they did. But that's only for like the first, 2/3 of the movie. But once it gets to the third act, that's when it's like, okay, let's get dangerous. The other downside is that unfortunately, the actor who played Billy, Brandon Call, I don't think this was his first movie, but I think it was one of his first. And so, I mean, overall, I mean, I did like, his interplay with Rutger Hauer, but I could also, it also really, seemed like this kid was, relatively new to the scene. And so, as far as acting goes, I mean, it wasn't quite up there yet. I mean, because there'll be moments where, I mean, yeah, he has good interplay with Rutger Hauer, as well as with Lisa Blount and Terry O'Quinn, excuse me. But at the same time, there'd be moments where I think they went too much into the realm of cutesy little kid, and unfortunately, whenever they did that, that's where it just got kind of, okay, come on, this is kind of cheesy, let's just let's skip to the next scene, come on. But thankfully, though, I mean, that didn't happen too often. But just bear in mind, it's like, whenever, a good amount of the time when there's like a child actor involved, I mean, there's kind of a risk of, okay, now this movie's going to schmaltzy territory. But, well, and unfortunately, it does have moments like that, but they're just moments, and thankfully it's not throughout the whole movie. And overall, Billy's a likable kid. Brandon eventually pulls through as Billy, but just bear in mind, though, that there are some sort of schmaltzy moments, and we're just kind of like, okay, all right, come on, let's go, but no, overall, I enjoyed the movie, and I'm glad my mom and my brother did too. And I'm glad that it held up, as much as I, remembered it. I'm glad it held up to what I remembered it being. And like, it's not a masterpiece, but it's definitely a good movie. It's fun, and it's exciting, and Rutger Hauer gives a really good performance in it. So yeah, so Blind Fury came out in 1989. Still a good movie, and I'm really glad that I was able to find it. As far as DVD goes, the only special feature is like a theatrical trailer. But I mean, all things considered, it's actually not a bad deal on DVD. I mean, I got it for $3 or $4. Y'all might be able to actually get it for less, but yeah, it was a good find, and I don't regret getting it, and I'm glad that it was still a fun movie from what I remembered it. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give Blind Fury 4 out of 5 stars. It was good. So thank you very much for taking the time to check out my review. Y'all got any questions, comments, let me know. Y'all have a good night. Bye.